What's going on, gamers? Welcome to my Battlefield 6 class breakdown series. Today we'll be talking about Assault, and I'll go over the role of Assault, their gadgets, weaponry, traits, and more. This is a combination of official and leaked information, and I will show what I can on screen as I talk about it. I've played almost every Battlefield since Battlefield 2 back when I was like 13 or something, and I've also played Battlefield 3 competitively. Battlefield 6 seems like it's returning to those glory days, so I want to create content about it and share my experience. I also want to mention that I was in Battlefield Labs, which is how I have a lot of this information, but the reveal event and likely the open beta will probably have more of a limited selection, so you might not see everything I talk about today in the beta, but I promise I'm not just making it up. I recently hit 200 subscribers, and as we approach open beta and then launch, I plan to make guides, tips, and tricks videos, post gameplay, along with the rest of this class breakdown series, so be sure to subscribe and teabag the like button. Now, Battlefield 6 seems like it's attempting to bring a lot of new players to the game, some of whom might not have played a Battlefield game before. So let's go over what the Assault class is and if you should play it. The Assault class has historically been good at two things. They played the role of the medic by healing and reviving teammates, and they also played the role of the entry fragger. The first of these roles, the medic, has been almost completely removed from the Assault class in Battlefield 6, meaning Assaults are now more than ever focused on their second role of pushing forward, claiming objectives, and killing the enemy. So you should play the Assault class if you like being in the front of the fight, pushing objectives, or if you like outplaying your opponents through movement or gunplay. Every aspect of the Assault class we talk about today will somehow assist you in doing one or more of these goals. Let's start with the description of the Assault class in-game, which currently reads: the Assault excels in infantry combat by breaking through enemy defense, breaching buildings, and swiftly clearing out enemy forces. This description is very accurate and somewhat similar to what I described, and the developers designed this class to do exactly this. So before I get into the breakdown, let's talk about all the parts that make up a class in Battlefield 6. I've made this graphic from the leaked and official information we have, and I'll talk about each of these sections and break them down. So in Battlefield 6, a class is made up of a signature gadget, a signature trait, and a signature weapon. Classes also have training, which is essentially a perk system or a subclass. Then finally, we have gadgets and throwables. So let's get started talking about each of these, starting with what I believe to be the most important. The signature gadget, in my opinion, is the most crucial and role-defining aspect of each class. The Assault signature gadget is an Adrenaline Injector or stimulant. This injector has been changed several times in Battlefield Labs testing, but the latest information we have from the multiplayer reveal event is that the Adrenaline Injector temporarily boosts sprint speed, reduces explosive damage, provides resistance to debuffs, and also makes enemy footsteps easier to hear. Until recently, it was also giving you instant healing. However, the developers are planning on or have already removed this functionality from the Assault's Adrenaline Injector, as they feel it makes the class too self-reliant. So everything the injector does basically screams go. It gives you offensive tools such as sprint speed so you can charge forward, and defensive tools such as resistance to debuffs since you're probably going to be focused by the enemy as you charged in. There's also some additional functionality to this injector, but it's actually tied to training, which we'll talk about later. Now, with the signature gadget out of the way, another important thing that defines the Assault class is the signature trait. The Assault signature trait is called Soft Landing and provides the class with reduced fall damage and no movement speed penalty after falling. These reduced falling penalties allow the Assault class to outmaneuver and outplay their opponents. Though this trait is fairly simple, the Assault's advanced movement, such as sprint speed from the injector or attaining height by using the ladder gadget, makes this the perfect trait for the class. It allows Assault to fulfill the role of playing aggressive and utilizing movement to win gunfights and cause chaos. The signature gadget and trait we've talked about so far are essential for making the Assault class feel like the leaders and entry specialists they're supposed to be. However, there's one more thing that really gives the Assault class their Assault feel, and it's actually a topic of some debate. Every class has a signature weapon or a weapon type that they have certain proficiency with, and for Assault, their signature weapon is the assault rifle. Assaults gain the benefit of being able to switch to and from assault rifles faster. They also gain better sprint recovery, meaning they are able to shoot sooner when exiting the sprinting state compared to their opponents. It sounds basic and straightforward, but it is very powerful in my opinion. This means that if you and your opponent run out of ammo at the same time, You can switch to your pistol faster than the enemy. You can also throw a grenade in the middle of a fight faster than your opponent. It also means you can switch to your gadget, use it, and switch back to your assault rifle, again, faster than your enemy. If that wasn't enough, the better sprint recovery means if you and your opponent see each other at the exact same time while sprinting, you will be able to shoot your weapon first, which is a massive advantage, especially because Battlefield 6 seems to have a pretty quick time to kill. This again adds to what I was saying about the developers really considering the class traits, weaponry, perks, and everything else, and really making sure that the assault class feels appropriate for what the class is supposed to be doing. Now there is some debate, as currently any class is able to use any weapon, which wasn't the case in some previous Battlefield games. I'm not sure how I feel about it yet, but I think if the proficiency bonus for each weapon is strong enough to motivate people to pick, for example, the assault rifle on the assault class, then I'm okay with every class having access to every weapon. This is because a powerful proficiency bonus will mean anyone wanting to build the best loadout possible will choose the appropriate weapon anyway. Now if you really want to use something other than an assault rifle, there's something called the weapon sling, which we'll talk about later. But now with the signature gadget, trait, and weapon out of the way, there are two different ways an assault player can approach the class, and this is called training. According to the developers of Battlefield 6, training basically breaks down each of the classes into one of two or more subclasses. These subclasses have 4 abilities. Level 0 is a passive ability which is given by default. Levels 1 and 2 are slightly more powerful abilities that have to be earned, and then finally at level 3, you have a 4th active ability which is shared between both of these subclasses. It also has to be re-earned once used. And in case there's any confusion, when I say earned, I mean these perks have to be earned by contributing to the battlefield via getting kills or completing objectives, and then they reset when the game ends. And from my experience playing Battlefield Labs, I think they're quite easy to attain. You can get to level 3 in about 6 or 7 minutes, meaning for most of the round you actually have access to all of these perks. Now before we go further, I do want to mention that in the multiplayer reveal event, there was only one of these subclasses, and it's likely we also only get one in the beta. However, in Battlefield Labs, I, along with everyone else, got to choose between 2 different ones for each class. So for Assault, the first path we have is Frontliner, which was also shown in the reveal event. The description reads, break through enemy defenses, serving as the tip of the spear for all ranges of tactical engagement. Looking at the perks of the Frontliner path, at level 0 we have ADS mobility, which you have by default. This passive ability removes your movement penalty while aiming down sights and moving. Next, at level 1, you have extra adrenaline, and this allows you to carry an additional Adrenaline Injector, which we just went over in the previous section. Level 2 is quick recovery, which simply gives you improved passive health regeneration stats in the form of a 50% reduced delay until your healing starts, and then once it starts, you have a 15% increase in how fast you heal. These 3 levels are designed perfectly to keep the frontliner protected and able to take gunfights at an advantage while pushing forward. We'll talk about the shared 4th perk a little bit later, but first let's look at the other training path. For the Assault's other subclass, we have Grenadier. Again, this information is from Labs and wasn't in the multiplayer reveal event, but the description for this training path reads, you are the tip of the spear, the explosive one. Reach walls, floors, and doors with your launchers and push into interiors with your flashbang. When things really heat up, use your adrenaline shot mid-fight to keep the assault going for a little longer. So from this description, the Grenadier seems to be a little more focused on creating chaos and for pushing in with explosive force rather than your skills with a gun. We'll probably see a lot of these guys if we ever get Operation Metro in BF6. For their perks, the level 0 free ability is called Grenadier, which simply allows the Grenadier to carry more grenades, and I believe this is just one extra grenade. At level 1, we have Harden, which means the Grenadier has resistance to visual impairment effects such as suppression or stun grenades. Level 2 perk, Gadget Reload, simply lets the gadgets of the Grenadier reload faster, meaning their 2 chosen gadgets and presumably the signature gadget all reload faster. So yeah, these perks line up with the description pretty well. Grenadier seems focused on causing status effects and dealing damage to the enemy by using your throwables and gadgets, which we'll talk about shortly, while also being less susceptible to being impaired yourself. Now finally, for level 3, we have an active ability, meaning you have to press a button to use it. So for the Assault's fourth and final ability, which again applies both to the Frontliner and Grenadier training paths, we have the Combat Stimulant. The perk says, press 6 to use an enhanced combat stimulant that can reveal enemies in addition to the usual effects. Kills prolong the duration. So if you remember, we previously talked about how the Adrenaline Injector provided the Assault class with increased sprint speed, resistance to debuffs, and made enemy footsteps louder. So this enhanced version of the Adrenaline Injector seems like it boosts the enemy footsteps being louder functionality of the regular injector, and also makes it so that the normal effects of the injector extend by 5 seconds every time you get a kill. Now, there is something to clear up with this. This ability does not give you wall hacks or anything. There's been some concern about this, but it was because of like old files that were left in Battlefield Labs or like an old description from a previous build of the game. However, I also want to say that this specific perk seems like a giant work in progress and will likely be different upon release. It's been changed several times in Battlefield Labs and just doesn't seem as impactful as some of the other classes' fourth perk. Overall, with the exception of the fourth perk, I think the class system is designed well and has useful benefits that help the player without turning them into a superhuman with crazy abilities. So now that we've covered the core aspects of the Assault class, let's look at the general gadgets that they have access to. Again, the beta build of the game might have very limited gadgets, but we've been able to test way more in Battlefield Labs. It's also important to note that the gadgets are fully different between all classes, and also that they recharge over time along with being resupplied much more quickly with a supply pack from a support player. Keep in mind that all classes can choose 2 of these gadgets. So to start, Assault Ladders are a fairly unique addition which I personally haven't experienced yet in Battlefield Labs or any other previous Battlefield. We did get gameplay footage of these ladders and they seem to be useful tools to breach buildings. Next up, the Weapon Sling allows the Assault class to bring a second weapon in place of a gadget slot. Now, it's important to note that the functionality of this has been changed slightly to where the Assault class can bring a second weapon only in the form of a carbine, DMR, or shotgun. Next, we have a flame round shotgun, which has the description, chambered in 12-gauge incendiary rounds, the M26 is a bolt-action close-range shotgun. So it's essentially a shotgun with limited slow-firing shots that actually causes the players you shoot to catch on fire, along with obviously dealing damage. Then we have the M320 high explosive launcher, which simply launches a large explosive projectile, and it does have quite a bit of range from what I've seen. Next up, we have the anti-vehicle grenade launcher, and it reads, the M320 that does damage over time to tank targets. I believe it works like a thermite grenade if you guys know what I'm talking about, but if you don't know, it isn't an explosive but rather creates a very high temperature chemical reaction on the surface of a vehicle, which then burns into the vehicle and does damage over time like it says. Next, we have the thermobaric grenade launcher, which was seen in the multiplayer revealed build of the game. The description for it reads, fires impact triggered thermobaric explosives, ideal for targeting groups of hostiles. The blast delivers limited initial damage, but stuns and burns enemies for a short duration. Can be carried standalone or underslung on weapons with a gadget mount attachment for faster access. So this seems like more of a utility tool that does less damage than something like the high explosive launcher, but has the added benefit of stunning and burning enemies. For the final launcher, we have the smoke grenade launcher, which very obviously creates a large area of smoke to block off sight lines, super useful for reviving. The smoke grenade launcher, along with the previously mentioned thermobaric grenade launcher, do say in the description that they can be carried underslung, and this also gives the added benefit of being able to switch to the gadget faster. Now, I don't know how this affects the stats of the weapon. Does it lower the recoil because your gun is heavier, or maybe it decreases movement speed? I don't know, but if anyone does, let me know in the comments down below. Overall, I think the gadget variety is great, and I hope that many of these gadgets make it to the launch of the game, as they all seem different yet useful. So with that out of the way, let's talk about grenades or throwables, which the Assault class has the largest selection of. Some of the important things to know about grenades or throwables are that most classes are capable of carrying only one grenade, but the Grenadier subclass, as we talked about earlier, can carry 2. Also, currently in Battlefield Labs, the range at which you are able to throw grenades is a little bit lacking, like you can't throw them very far, but this might just be a balance decision to prevent grenade spam. So to start, we have the standard fragmentation grenade, which is just your standard grenade with a 4 or 5 second fuse time. The contact grenade, which explodes on impact. The mini V40 frag grenade, which I believe explodes faster but also does either less damage or the same damage but in a less area. Then we have the stun grenade, which says it disorients enemies with a concussive blast. So I would assume this causes a concussion-like effect that blurs enemy vision and worsens their hearing for a bit. The flash grenade does something similar, and its description reads, the grenade emits an intense blast that temporarily blinds nearby enemies. Impairment scales with proximity and line of sight to blast. So I think the difference here is that the stun grenade has more of a physical impact on like your ability to move or aim, where the flash grenade has more of a visual impact where you can't see anything on your screen, but you can probably move and aim just fine. Then we have the smoke grenade, which obviously just creates smoke, but it does have an interesting bit in the description where it says, used to create smoke screens to hide infantry or for ground signaling. So I wonder if that's just something they mention in the description for lore reasons, or if we'll actually be able to use it to signal things like airstrikes or something. The incendiary grenade is next, and it says a hand-thrown grenade that uses a thermite reaction to burn through material. So this basically gives us confirmation that the anti-vehicle grenade launcher that we talked about earlier was probably a very similar thermite reaction like it says here, and I think it also might have an added benefit of setting the ground and the players nearby on fire. Finally, for the very last one, we have the throwing knife, which I actually have little to no information on as I have not had the chance to use it in-game, and it also doesn't have an in-game description, but presumably it's a knife that you can throw. If you know any more about it than that, please let me know down below in the comments. So, like the gadgets, I think the throwables have a large variety, and they all seem at least somewhat useful, and that's great to see. Next, although not unique to the assault class, it is part of the kit, so I figured I would cover the melee weapons. First, we have the knife, which reads, this lightweight serrated knife serves as an essential combat weapon. So, as we know, the knife can be swung, although I don't think it kills in one hit unless you approach the enemy from behind and perform the first-person knifing animations that we've seen in some previous Battlefield games, and we know we're getting in this one too. For the second and final melee weapon, we have the sledgehammer, that reads, a combat sledgehammer specifically crafted for warfare. Can be used for light demolition or against infantry. So as we've seen in the trailers, unlike the knife, I think it does kill the enemies in one hit if you swing at them, although it's much slower to swing, so if you miss, you're kinda screwed. And the sledgehammer is also, like the knife, capable of performing the stealth kill animation. In addition to that, I think it's also supposedly useful for small-scale destruction, but until we get our hands on the game, it's kinda hard to tell how much. Now, there's a little bit more to classes that I almost didn't cover in this video because it's kind of only superficial. Battlefield 6 seems to be planning on including characters you can play as. No, these aren't like heroes or specialists like we saw in Battlefield 2042, but data miners have uncovered certain characters that are tied to classes, and they essentially just have a special look to them and most likely special voice lines. Now, these two down here are just typical assault characters and not the playable characters we'll have. However, we do have information on these characters for the Assault class, including Ruben Quinter, who is from the Pax Armada subfaction of the Alboran Patrol. And then we have codename Wisp, who is from the United Kingdom, the NATO subfaction. Again, I don't think these characters will change gameplay at all, but they're specific to the Assault class, so I figured it was worth mentioning. For some final thoughts about the Assault class, I think Assault will be a little more team reliant this time around, which I think is perfectly okay as Battlefield has always been a team play focused game. However, I do think that taking the medic role away from them might make them looked down upon by the community as somewhat selfish. Engineers repair and take care of tank, supports heal and provide ammo, snipers spot and provide spawn beacons. Assaults are useful, don't get me wrong, but it seems like they're just lacking that helping the team element that all other classes seem to have. Either way, Assault has been my favorite class to play in Battlefield Labs, and there are enough knobs and buttons that the developers have if they need to change the class to better fit the game. Again, if you're a new player, Assault is all about leading the charge for your team, capturing objectives, and winning gunfights through the tools that Battlefield 6 gives you. Use your advantage with assault rifles to win gunfights. Use your enhanced mobility to outplay opponents. Use your grenade launchers to open up new pathways for your team. Assault seems to have more tools and options than any other class as long as you're able to use them to your advantage. So guys, that covers it for the Assault class breakdown. I don't think it's possible to develop the classes in a way that every single person in the community likes, but I think Battlefield Studios are doing a good job with building out these classes and their functionality. I'll try to get the information about the other classes out as soon as I can. I also plan to make more of these guides as well as cover topics like weapon builds, tips and tricks, and more, so leave a like and hit the subscribe button to keep up to date. This was Sphinx, thank you for watching.